get added. Ap- Apart from these things, but before going to incremental load, what things we need to take care? What are the prerequisites before doing incremental testing? For doing incremental testing, what needs to be there with you?
Okay. For incremental, we have to do insert and update operations.
Yes,
For
it would
that,
be coming. So like how you do?
okay.
You need to get the
Um,
file, right? You need to get the file from
file.
the production.
Okay.
Uh, on the top of the current file date, you need to get from the production. You need to ask some developer or like your lead or somebody to ingest into the server. Okay, so once you run the job is nothing but that would be developed by the developer, so that if you run that job either in Informatica or Azure Data Factory or any ETL tool, what it happens was the data would be picked up from the source and placed in the target. So that's would be a like total SQL code written by the developer. So for the incremental data, once you place the latest file in the server, again when you run the job, the data will move from source to target. That is one thing. Like if you are, even though if there was a latest file on the top of current date file, when data was not there, like the incremental data was not there, then we will add data on ourselves. That process we call as seeding. Seeding is nothing but adding the insert or update scenarios to the current file. Like you will modify the existing file and you will just rename it and you will ingest in the server with your own data, because the incremental production data was not there. So until it comes, you wouldn't wait for testing, right? So you will be having a deadline to complete your testing. So then what you will do is you will add your own data, some dummy data into it, some like already you will update one existing record and you will insert a new record and run the job, such that the insert and update should appear accordingly as per your requirement in the target target table. So that process of inducing the data into the file like manually to test the incremental part we call as seeding. So yeah, once you got the incremental data, everything was there. So what extra things apart from the one-time load we do here?
No idea, Surya.
Okay. Here we do like with respect to batch ID or some partition column, the latest data would be divided, like what the new data would be coming, some batch date using. Batch date was a partition column in your table. So for the new load into the table, some extra partition number would be created. Like if you use the where condition with that partition column number, only the incremental data would appear. It is nothing but to partition your data for a faster performance. You wanted to see a particular column only with respect to particular batch ID. Then you can filter using this partition column, right? So now already you have done the historical testing. Now you need to do only incremental testing. Then what you do is you write all these conditions and you will write where at batch ID is equal to that incremental batch ID. So you will get all the records or what was the incremental data was coming. So you will test that in all these cases what you have done in one time load. Understood or not?
Yeah, yeah.
You just use where condition with that batch ID. That's it.
With that,
In
yes.
the SQL queries, what you have done for one time load testing. Next is ETL bugs. What do you understand by bug? So bugs are, yeah, you can you tell something, or what is a bug?
Bug means error. Will not get the correct
Okay,
output,
it
so
is an
we
error,
consider as
but
a bug.
as per the
Yes.
testing, uh, as per related to testing, then what we say here, bug is nothing but defect, right?
Bug is nothing but.
A defect, what you raise.
Okay, okay.
You are raising a defect, like some error was coming in yours, so that we call as a
Okay.
defect. So what, like, you can say, you can also say like different types of ETL defects that you generally get. The first type of bug is user interface, or also cosmetic, we say. It is related to like front end, like what is visible to you actually on the screen. Okay, that might be like a font style or color, but as per the requirement, some black color you should get, dark black color you should get, but it is appearing as light gray color. So some problem in the code. So in the dashboard, like they have written a code, and on the dashboard you need to have a dark black color as per the requirement, but you are getting light gray color. So that those type of defects we call as like user interface or cosmetic bugs. That might be font size, the color, or alignment. So like whatever related to user interface application, whatever the errors you get, so that those are user interface or cosmetic bugs, we say. The next is input output bugs. Input input output bugs means like if you whatever the for whatever the code you have written, some value you might like you might give a range between like some check constraint you have given in the table. So your value should be like between 10 and 50. Like those are valid values you have think, and you have given some constraint for that column. But even though if you enter the value which should be acceptable, it is giving an error. So those type of bugs we segregate under input output bugs. The next one is calculation bugs.
Surya,
Mm.
can you please repeat about the input output bugs?
Input output bugs means like for a particular column, just I was giving an example. For a particular column, when you give a check constraint, then what will happen? Yeah,
Check.
you learn the check constraint, right? What is the check
Yes,
constraint,
yes.
and like what you would be doing using check constraint? You can define a range, right?
We'll
Some
check the between the ranges, like
yeah,
if we give the
not
check
only range,
constraint
like
to the
what, yeah,
each column,
you can define like whatever the value should be acceptable
values.
in that
Yes.
column. So you
Okay.
defined the acceptable values, but even though if you give the acceptable value, it gives an error. So that
Okay.
we call as like input bug, and output bug means like uh, the correct value was not coming, we can say. But these all kinds of bugs we segregate under input output bugs. It's not a valid
Okay.
value. Okay, so those are
Okay.
input
Okay.
output bugs. Next is calculation bugs. Calculation bugs are like you are performing an aggregation operations you are performing, but the output is wrong. So those errors you segregate under calculation errors when you are using aggregate operations on your table or columns. Is it clear?
Once again.
Calculation bugs are segregated, which errors are segregated under calculation bugs are, so you will be perform aggregate functions with respect to columns like sum of salary or average of salary.
Okay.
So, but it is giving a wrong value.
Okay.
So if that kind of error comes when you are performing some aggregation operations, so those are only calculations, right? So those
Hmm.
errors we segregate under calculation bugs.
Okay. Okay.
The next is load condition bugs. It's like some user interface application has been developed. So like at a time you define like some 100 number of users can use that. But even though some 50 number of users are doing, like if the 51 customer 51 user is coming and accessing the application, it is giving an error even though if you developed the application correctly. So such conditions so such errors we keep under load condition bugs. Here you can say as like I told in general, but here some cluster has been used at a time, like some threshold limit was there. Even though if you are not, even though you are performing the operation such that the threshold limit shouldn't reach, but it was throwing an error saying that the threshold limit is reached and you can't perform any operations. So those kind of bugs will be segregated under load condition bugs. Is that okay? Understood?
Okay.
Okay, those are load condition bugs. Next is race condition bugs. Race condition bugs are like nothing. If the system is hanging when you are running your code, or it's like crashing, or whatever the code you have developed, like it in client machine it was not running, like on the client platform it was not running. So those all bugs you segregate under race condition bugs. Understood?
Okay.
Okay.
If the system is hanging or
Yeah.
crashing,
What for whatever
is
the
there any
ETL application, like
also?
that code, ETL code, whatever they have developed, and you are testing, like the system is hanging, or like
Okay.
some restarting kind of thing is done, or it is not working in the actual requirement is that code should work on the some client platform. It is not working. So such kind of errors we segregate under race condition bugs. Next is version control bugs. If for a particular that ETL testing like application or code, the version is not available. So when they are making an iteration, they will make a version actually. Like one code was completed, but some enhancement has come, so that they will keep as version 2. They will just keep the old version 1 as it is, and they will keep the new one as version 2. So when the changes are being happening, they are if there was not maintaining proper version when you are seeing, like when you are testing, if you feel that, so then you say that you will raise that as a bug. And this most commonly occurs in regression testing. What is regression testing?
Regression testing.
Hmm.
So um, after building the code, if client want to change, add any new thing, so we have to build that code and we have to test it again.
By the time one testing cycle is complete, would be completed or not?
Yeah, completed.
Yes,
After completing
yes.
the testing,
Yeah, after
so the
completing the
client want to
testing,
add
if the
in.
client wants to add some function, then we
Yes,
will go for regression testing. And in
regression
regression
testing.
testing, we can define like whether only that part needs to be tested, or like complete if, if that change was linking to the complete application, like it might affect some area of the application, then we need to check the complete application. So you will define like whether you need to, in regression testing, only that some part where the change is occurred, whether you need to test that, or like the complete thing. So that will be decided based on the impact of the change that is being made in your application. So such type of testing is called regression testing. In regression testing, like the new code is being implemented, and there should be a new version for that, right? So if that version is properly maintained, not properly maintained, if you observe that, you will raise under version control bug. Next is, if the class ends, you again rejoin. Like I also will again rejoin. Okay. The next is hardware bugs. The hardware, like whatever you are using for that application, if it is that application is not running, like you will define like for this particular ETL application, this is the hardware that should be there for your system. But even though your system is having that hardware, it is creating a problem, and that application was not running as per the expected time and all, or not at all running, that application is not at all running on your system. So even though the hardware requirements, what is required for that application was there in your system, that bugs you will segregate under hardware bugs. Next is help source bugs. You will be developing a document, right? Like how to use that application and how to use the code, like whatever you have developed. So if there are some errors in that help source document, so that defects we categorize under help source bugs. The next is ECP bugs. What is ECP? We have learned this one when we have learned this one. We have learned this one, like how to prepare the test data we have seen, right? Well, like how to get the test data and all, we'll use this technique. I explained you this technique. Like what is ECP?
Yes,
This is one of the technique that that we would be using for creating the test data. We have discussed this. Did you remember this?
no, no, Surya.
ECP is equivalent class partitioning.
Yeah,
Now you are getting.
equivalent class partition.
Mm.
Yes,
So it's like whether you
that
will define a class and all.
was.
So then you will decide like whether it is valid or invalid type kind of thing you would decide based upon your classification. If it is valid or invalid, you will decide, and such bugs, like If that if you are decided a
If
class
the
and that
class is valid, if
mm,
the class is valid or invalid.
yeah, even though it is not giving an output correctly, like it should come whether
Okay.
then that bugs, you have defined the class and everything, but it is not showing like valid or invalid. So such bugs you keep under equivalent partitioning, sorry, equivalent class partitioning related bug you say. Even though you have defined the range, but it is not showing the correct output. That is one bug, and BVA bug also would be there. What is BVA? It is also like we have seen like while preparing the test data. What is BVA? BVA is nothing but boundary value analysis, right?
Boundary value
So in
analysis. Okay.
boundary analysis, what you will get like minimum and maximum would be defined, and
Maximum analysis.
so like even though if you defend, you are not getting correct output, then such bugs you segregate under boundary value analysis bugs. So these are the different types of bugs that are that generally appear in your ETL testing process. Apart from this, other things also like you no need to segregate. You need to know what are the different types of bugs. But while you are testing, you not only these bugs, you get other types of different bugs like based upon your test approach and all. And anyway, while creating a bug, you won't write this. This is a user interface bug. This is an input output bug. You won't write these names. You will just write this is the actual result and what is your expected result. So those two things you will be filling, and you will write any in descriptive like descriptive language regarding your bug. So how to raise a defect? I explained you or not? Like in the manual testing, I explained, I think so, but the similar way also here also would be there for raising a defect. So I was not remembering. I was asking you like I explained like how to create a bug or not. Like what are the different things that we need to maintain in that sheet for raising the defect.
Okay, you are asking about the test case.
Not test case, like
Then,
defect. Like what are the like you are raising a defect. What are the different things that you should maintain in that sheet? Sheet in the sense that if you have opened a page, there everything you would
okay.
maintain, right? Or if like in your project, all the bugs you are raising through an some you are placing in an Excel sheet. And in the Excel sheet
Yes.
also some data
Like
should
you
be
are
maintained
asking
regarding the
about
bug.
serial number, test points, scenarios.
That is test cases like defect. For defect,
Okay.
once whenever you are raising a defect for a particular thing, what are the things that you would maintain for that defect?
No,
The
Surya,
other
you are not.
I haven't told, right? So I will tell that.
Yes.
So no doubts in the different types of ETL bugs, right? So
Mm.
if they ask the question like what are the different bugs that you would get, you need to tell these things
Surya, do you have any PDFs about this?
regarding these bugs.
Yes, bugs and A-
Okay,
ATL course.
okay. I will just see. Like there are some many things, but I was what how I was telling was the topics like whatever I were covering in the class that terminologies you will use or you will see in your day-to-day work actually.
Okay.
In that way I was explaining like so once the course is completed you will be having like lot of materials. I will send to you the materials as
Okay.
well. uh,
Okay.
but these are the minimum things that you need to remember, those things I was telling, and the questions also in the interview would be mostly coming from the points I was telling you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so just rejoin again, only 2 minutes are there. Just I was stopping
Okay.
here again, rejoin again the same thing.